Hello and welcome to Rolling with Reviews. I'm Will, and with me as always is Miss Meeple on a mission herself,
Sarah.
And today we're looking at Meeples Monsters, the Kickstarter Edition. Sarah, tell us a bit about this game.
All right, with plenty of meeple humor. Meeple and Monsters is a bag building, worker placement, and meeple modifying game of growing your army of meeples and fighting monsters and completing quests to score the most victory points to win. All right, so Will, why did we get Meeples and Monsters?
In short, Sarah put a one-word note here that just said Meeples exclamation mark.
Meeples!
So she's a sucker for Meeples.
Oh, yeah.
But when it comes to the game mechanics that are announced, they're all up our alley. And when it comes to the company, AEG, Alderac Entertainment Group, we know and trust them to deliver a great game. So all that combined,
Yeah.
we were a shoo-in to pick this one up.
Yeah, we just couldn't say no. I'm pretty sure I backed the first day, and it just looked so up our alley. And, well, we're about to tell you if that's true.
Yes.
All right, so what do we like about the game besides the meeples?
A whole lot.
Yes.
This game has, again, all the mechanics that we look for. They do it, they integrate it very well.
Yes.
It feels extremely satisfying. And one of the ways they do that is by structuring the game into 4 acts. They don't mention this in terms of thematics, but how the game plays out is very interesting. The first act has a lot to do with building up the town. The town identifies which actions you play during the game. So there are 8 spaces to allocate these tiles to. Once they're allocated, that act is done. Then you move into Act 2. That's where you start beefing up your meeples. Maybe leveling up the wizard and the knight and starting to beat up monsters and complete quests that give you additional powers. So you have a much stronger army of meeples to face what comes. That's Act 2. That's going to be playing throughout Act 1 as well, but it really kicks up a notch into Act 2. And then it continues the rest of the game. Act 3 really starts up once players see that they have what they need and are regularly defeating the monsters. Because the monsters are present throughout the entire act, throughout the entire game.
Yeah,
so it's
from
not
the very
just,
beginning.
Yeah, it's not just Act 3. But you finally start seeing that mechanically play out when every turn monsters are going down, sometimes 2, sometimes even 3 at a time, and they're just flying by the wayside. And finally, once it hits the last trigger, because as you defeat monsters, cards are flipped up, and you have a Dark Council card. Once the third one of those flips up, you move into Act 4, and that's where you face the 3 final bosses.
Well, 3 and a half, yeah.
As long as they're henchmen.
Yeah, so there's 3 final bosses, one of each of the monster types, and then the henchmen. And so then everybody has 2 rounds to beat up these guys for more points. And so you're, like you said, you are building up your army, but the building up and fighting monsters, it feels like Act 2 and 3 meet in the middle and overlap quite a bit.
Yeah, that's all dependent on you as a player.
Yeah.
Am I a turtler? Then you're going to have probably more distinct acts. Or do you have more of a hybrid style? That's where you see that blending and blurring of the 2. Or if you're a very aggressive player, you're like, skipped Act 2, I'm on to Act 3.
Which may or may not be advisable.
It may not be a great strategy.
Probably not. So, yeah, the 4-act flow is definitely not something they talked about on the Kickstarter, but we saw it as we were playing through, and it feels so brilliant. Again, it's not hard lines, except that, yeah, when you're done building the town, you're done building the town. But in one of our games, we didn't just go straight through and spend 4 rounds building up the town. We got to a point where we wanted to, build up our army, and there were still empty spots. And then as we felt like it, we added those tiles in. So there is some blurring back and forth with, how these go.
Yeah.
But it is a very interesting way to structure the game so that you can get kind of a lot of different mechanisms in one game and it not feeling too overwhelming.
Yeah, or too samey.
Yes.
Because a lot of times, like, oh, I'm working hard to get this done, and once that's done, then I'm a little bit adrift as to where I go next. No,
yeah.
the actions of the town help you make better meeples. The meeples help you defeat the monsters. The monsters are what you have to defeat to get to the boss.
And the monsters help make your meeples better. So it kind of goes back in a circle as well.
Yeah.
So, and that works in all of the mechanisms that we like with the bag building, the fact that your meeples are going in the bag and you're pulling out only so many. But as you improve your meeples, you know, certain ones as they level up will give you an ability to potentially draw more out of your bag. Or the tiles that are in the town could help you draw more out of your bag. So you're not just always stuck with X number of meeples for your turn and putting out your actions. And I also appreciate the worker placement. Yes, I know the traditional worker placement is I put out my meeples and that blocks everybody else. But I'm not a huge fan of blocking worker placement.
Passive denial.
Yeah, that passive denial is just not my jam. So I much prefer games where, now there is a couple spots you fight for, but that's actually kind of interesting. Otherwise, you're placing out your meeples, you're resolving everything, taking them back, and you're not blocking the next person from doing anything they want to do.
Yeah, so everything's always moving forward.
Right.
The humor is also cute. In the game, all the pictures and stuff are meeples. Most of the monsters have, and places, have some sort of theme connected to wood and or meeples directly.
Right. I think the only ones we identified where they kind of fell flat was the lower level undead were just zombies. Skeletons. And I'm like, oh, they didn't even try to, I don't know what they would do, but it would have been funny if they had figured out how to make that wood or meeple themed. I think my favorite, though, the cleric picture, he's actually holding a wood glue, a tube of wood glue, because, you know, that's how you heal meeples, is you glue them back together. Yeah. I just think that it's just, I wouldn't call it brilliant, but it's very funny, and
it's also very subtle.
It is very subtle, but it is a nice, light addition to the game, kind of also reminding you not to take it too seriously.
Yeah.
Because it's really easy to get into that mindset.
Was there anything else we...
Yes. Now, again, since we're talking about the Kickstarter edition, there is included the Four Towers mini expansion, which adds more scoring opportunities. They act like action spaces in the town, but when you complete them, when you put the required meeples on it, you actually take the tile for most of them, and they're going to give you points at the end of the game.
Or a special ability, or another meeple, or...
Right.
They'll let you do something.
Yeah,
cool.
A lot of them felt like they were endgame scoring points, but there were some that gave you other things.
Sarah barely touched them. I went heavily on it and won because of it. Yeah. I think there was 2 tiles that made me score at the end of the game. So I know,
that's true.
I know more about it. Trust me.
No, but you had 2 tiles, but you had multiple tiles for those tile types.
Yes, I did.
So it was kind of a set collection thing. If you, the more of
for some of the time.
Yeah. For some of them, the ones he scored on at the end of the game. Anyways, this mini expansion and the solo play is available on AEG's website for extra. So that part is still available to purchase.
Yeah. Now, I think we're a bit mixed on the printing.
Yes. So the meeples in the Kickstarter edition have one side of them are printed with a very detailed image of the character, which matches on your board. You have the 5 basic meeples printed, and then as you get the specialized one, you gain their card. And so the art matches. The problem is it's a very detailed image, so at a glance, it's really hard to tell them apart when you need to know what color they are. Now, the knight's fine because he's in all black armor. The red is... is that the cleric?
That's cleric.
Yeah, the red is cleric, has red robes, but the other ones have a variety of colors, and none of them have a dominant enough color. Now, this is, again, at a glance, to be able to tell them apart. However, at least it's there, so you have the option, because the orange and the yellow are very close together. I was mixing up the orange and the yellow. So you could use orange with the printed, the printed side up, and the yellow with the color side up. So it does give you...
down.
Down. I'm getting
so
confused.
that one's very distinctly,
right.
well, that's plain, that's the wizard, he's yellow.
Yeah.
That's the one face up, that's very complex, that's a special character, that's the shaman.
Exactly.
Type of thing.
So the printings does give you
options.
I will say halfway through the game, I ended up turning most of them so the print was down and I just saw the color because the quest cards only use color. So I can't say I really like the printed, but it is an option if you get the Kickstarter edition.
I think ultimately it's not going to make or break this game.
No, it won't.
So if you want the printing Kickstarter edition, that's where you can get it from. Otherwise, pick it off the shelf. You're going to have basic Meeples.
Yeah, the retail copy is just going to have the basic colored Meeples. And if you're still having color accessibility, like we talked about in our other video, you can use paint and or a Sharpie to mark like the whatever it is that you're having issues with.
Yes.
All right.
Dislikes.
Yeah, so this is a mixed dislike for us. A 2-player game is long. Now, we like long games some of the times, but we're not always going to want a long game. Now, specifically at a 2-player count, it's long.
Yes.
We believe this game, this game is definitely player driven. How fast you go, how fast the players go is how fast the game goes. But just having more players at the table means the game's going to go faster. So the printed time of 30 to 45 minutes probably applies to a 4-player game because you get that many people out and everybody's doing something all the time. It's just going to move.
Yes.
Because this is a game where you have to get through the whole deck of monsters to get to the end of the game. So it's just going to take longer for 2 people to get there. Now, you get a lot more game from it, like we talked about in our 2-player accessibility video. It's just, again, not always going to want... There's going to be times we actually want a 30 to 45-minute game, and this will not be that for us probably ever.
I think we have enough other
games I think at this point we have enough other ones. This game, and again, this is for us. I'm a turtle. He's got vision disabilities. We're slow. This is always going to be on the 1.5 to 2 hour long game for us. That's at a different scale than 30 to 45 minutes.
Yeah. So I would say the problem really comes up is if you play it with a different number of counts and find that you really like it with this number of players, chances are you're going to have to always play with that number of players.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind when it comes to if you like a faster game, you're going to probably have to be stuck with a 4-player game. If you don't mind or really love the long player, you might be stuck with the 2-player experience. That's just how it is.
Yep.
Because it's balanced that way.
And another minor, I guess this is more of just a complaint for me, is trying to recommend this game. There is a retail edition and a Kickstarter edition. Now, the printed Meeples, the embroidered bag, and the dragon
Meeple.
Yeah, there's a little dragon Meeple as a first player marker. Those 3 things are cosmetic and they are Kickstarter exclusive. You cannot get those outside of the Kickstarter edition. Now, the 4 Towers mini expansion and solo pack can be bought separately on AEG's website. So if you like solo play and or want a little bit more variety and option in your game, you can still currently get it. Now, my concern is that will not always be available. But then again, who's to say this game will always be available anyways? But it does kind of suck, in my opinion. I personally don't like it when gameplay content is not available for everybody. Yeah. That's just my issue.
And for me, the Kickstarter edition is nothing more than a bundle with a nice little kick up for some of the cosmetics.
Yeah. So your mileage may vary on how much you care about that, because you could be thinking, I never play solo and this sounds like there's plenty to do in the game. So if I don't have these little tower tokens or tiles to play with, then it's no big deal. Then I'm glad that. But again, it's just my little personal pet peeve. I don't like there being gameplay content that I just can't say, yes, you can go get it anytime. You can't get it right now as of recording of this video. It will cost you $10 extra, and you can only get it from AEG, but it's there.
Okay.
All right, so let's move on to ratings.
So for our ratings, we each have 1d6 worth of ratings to give. 1 is low, 6 is high. We give a number, reason why, add the 2 numbers together, see what it rolls for us. Sarah, what did Meeples and Monsters roll for you?
It rolled a 5. I really like this game. I really like what it does. The games we've played have been very close. Like there were points in in the games where it's like, oh, I think Will's ahead, or like, oh, I feel really good about what's going on. And it came down to like 2 or 3 points difference. Like you really didn't know until you counted up all the end game scoring quests and whatever else was going on at the end. So I like that because it really keeps you invested the whole way through. And like Will said, this game really helps guide you through the game in this 4-act. If you feel like you're floundering on, oh, I feel like I got a lot of meeples. Well, you've got monsters to fight, so fight the monsters. And so you always have an idea of what you need to do next. And I think what really brings it down, and it is not a 6 for me, is just for the 2-player experience, since this is primarily how we're going to play it, it's a long game. I really wish Will and I could play this in 30 to 45 minutes. This would be a 6. Now, this is a player issue. This is definitely an us issue.
Yeah.
This is not the game's fault. I mean, yes, I'm going to tell you, you're probably, as a 2-player experience, probably going to be similar, but you'll probably be able to get it to an hour, maybe an hour and a half. We're just slow. And that's just the way it is, and I've come to accept that. But that just means that for my personal enjoyment, this game is not a perfect game for me because I'm not going to always want to play it. But I'm going to want to always play it. But I'm not always going to have the energy or the time or the whatnot. So, yep, that's it.
For me, 5. Can I say ditto?
You can say ditto.
All right. Pretty much also the same reasons. Long for us
Yes.
is why it gets pipped down 1. I can't underscore how great this game is. So many games have come out and says, well, this is a Euro experience, but made with a strong narrative. I feel it does a pretty good job at that.
Yeah.
I don't, and it does it without lots and lots of text. It tells a story through the mechanics, and it tells it very well. That's its strength, and it's fun doing it. But yeah, it's long for us.
I kind of feel like it's possible to do some sort of quick start, but I feel like that would really break that 4-act structure of the game.
Yeah, but the movie Titanic could be a lot faster if we start with the boat sinking.
That's true.
It doesn't mean it's gonna be good.
That's true. So just something to think about. But honestly, I think this is a near perfect, but it is a great game. Regardless of perfect or not perfect, it's a great game. Highly recommend checking it out.
Heck, it rolled a 10 out of 12 for us.
Yes, that's really good. Really good. So
check it out,
check it
Meeples
out.
and Monsters.
Yep.
Well, that'll do it for us. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can reach us on the various social media platforms at
Rolling with 2, that's TWO. We are on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And on YouTube, please like and subscribe.
And hey, you just pulled up these 2 Meeples, and we've been Rolling with Reviews.